Of handling jewels. That's fair enough. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start off the Fireside then. If I'm assuming everybody's in here, and there are a couple people transitioning from A to B, which is fine. So we've got a couple points to work through. As a coalition, I wanted to go ahead and start off by saying this is the 10th Fireside. We are 2 months away from having a 1 year celebration hop in which the details shall be outlined in announcements after the Fireside. So look forward to that because that is going to be a lot of fucking fun. It's going to be a pretty big operation in which it will involve a lot of allies, a lot of big ships, a lot of bling, and a lot of fucking fun to be had. So that is going to be really fucking good to be a part of in the before the summertime. Right. So, my first point to start off with the Fireside is the skill supplemental training and whether people have been keeping up with that or not. Now, there have been, like, some of you guys are relatively new coming into the coalition, so that's fine. But there have been a few skill plans that I've put out that your CEOs should have passed to you as a collective. So you should have hold of those at the moment. Those are the supplemental training and the weapon specific training. Now, if you've gone ahead and trained those, then you're basically good to go to get into the TSC doctrine and start getting ready for that. If you haven't trained the supplemental training or the weapon specific training, then you need to begin doing that as soon as possible. Because there's a timeline to get things ready by, and training the TSC doctrine is going to take you. If you have no skills in anything, and you're fresh out of the pod, you're just getting into things, your training is going to take you about 2 months. Because the doctrines are T2 specific, there are no T1 variants for this, and this is intentional. It is a battleship doctrine, so it's going to be very high skilled, and it's going to be very specific in terms of what it can do. So getting into it is going to be a long haul, and it's going to be very application focused when it comes to DPS logistics, E-war, and this sorts of stuff. So if you're getting into these doctrines and you're very new off of things, it's going to be a bit of a train. But if you've already done the prerequisite training, which is the skill supplements and the weapon stuff, then getting into it should be a lot easier. Your capabilities of that specific ship, whatever it is, will be that much better. So your DPS capabilities should increase by at least double, theoretically, if you have no skills and you're getting up to decent skills and then transitioning from there. Are there any questions for that first point before I move on to the second? Come here, let me know if there's any questions. That's fine. Roger that. Okay. If there's no questions, then I'm going to go ahead and move on to the second point here. So we've had the segregation recently between TJTF and Syndicate, between PvP and industry. Now, this has been an intentional thing that was decided by all of leadership, and it was for the simplification of aggregation and structural setup. What this means, basically, in non-fancy terms, in layman's, is we're separating the indie from the PvP intentionally, so that we can focus on the two separate sectors and appropriate the intended focal points. That means intentional focus for each of these two sides. So in this case, for TJTF, it's going to be purely PvP. For Syndicate, it's going to be predominantly industry. That means that those are the major focuses. That does not by any means state that Syndicate will never do PvP or TJTF will never do industry stuff. It just means that the Alliance's main focus is going to be that specifically, which is why there was a separation between the two. Now, There will still be doctrine training for Syndicate, as there will be for TGTF. There will still be organizational structure. There will still be CTAs and strats and that sort of stuff for Syndicate, as there will be for TGTF. And of course, that there's going to be for Pain and Compliance, who have now joined TMC, which I'm very happy to have aboard, by the way. So that's also going to be a thing as well. Now, that will be explained in further detail to you by your CEOs and directors. You can go ahead and ask them questions if you want, or alternatively, if they don't have the answers to all of your questions, you can feel free to post any questions right now before I move on to the third point. Uh-oh. That's scary. What does indie freight doctrines look like? Oh, he's talking about the industry doctrines. I'd left that to you, Kami. Is that still a process that's ongoing, or good? Mm-hmm. Roger. Fair enough. If it's going to be a bait and slate sort of doctrine, then I understand. But if you're talking about industry-specific doctrine that's yet to come, I'll be working with the commissar on that after the Fireside, and we'll go ahead and endorse that afterwards. So you should see that, I would say, finished and made by next week. And then the week after, you should start seeing it be pushed into official doctrines. So give it about 2 weeks, and you should see something for that one. No, Alex, I do not have a mining rook. Okay, so that moves on. If there's no more questions, Vazia. On the splitting of the industry and the combat between the alliances, is it still the expectation that the industry toons have at least an alpha toon on the combat side and vice versa where possible? Yes, for the industry side, that is specific. Yeah, there needs to be a thing, and this is so that there's always combat readiness available for the alliances for syndicate side. But this is specifically for syndicate. This isn't for Pain and Compliance on the other alliance, and if they have their own internal setups. This is for syndicate specifically, because Syndicate is working as the industrial backbone for the coalition, so that's specific to them. That doesn't mean that Pain and Compliance does it. That doesn't mean Sacrament does it, or any other entity, should they join us in the future, do the same thing at all either. This is specific to Syndicate and any other alliance that wishes to remain indefinitely ineligible. That is the specifics. So if an alliance is indefinitely ineligible and it's part of TMC, then it needs to have PvP alts within one of the corporations within TJTF. This is simply so that TJTF, one, acts as the war front for the coalition, and two, so that at all times has capability to be able to punch things in the face. I hope that answers your question, Fazia. If there's any other questions, let me know and we'll move on. Or excuse me, if there aren't any more, then we'll move on. Okay, that's fine. Right, and this moves me on to my third point, the necessity of PvP readiness as well as protocol and that side of things. You need to understand as a collective, guys, you're operating in both high sec and low sec. These are going to be times where you are engaged in PvP, and every time you undock a ship, you are consenting to PvP. That is the way the game works. There's no point in the game where you are not at danger the moment you undock. Like, it will happen every single time. There have been cases where people have been ganked in high sec, as it happens in low sec, black ops dropped, fleet engagements, roaming gangs, etc., etc., etc. You need to have some form of combat ready ships available with you at times. This doesn't specifically mean that, and this does not tie, by the way, to the segregation of industry between syndicate and the segregation of PvP protocol in Tempest. This is very specific to you as individuals. Just because there is an intentional segregation between TJTF and SIND does not mean that both sides aren't expected to go and fight. If this is like a thing in low sec, then both sides will be there. If it's in high sec, then both sides will be there. That's how this works. It isn't a case of I'm an industrialist, I can't fight, you can. The same way a PvP guy can mine. Like it's the exact same thing. Pegasus, can somebody give rolls to Sand Spider? He'll need to get them in a minute, Pegasus. I'm in the middle of this. When it comes to PvP readiness and that side of things, what I'll be doing from here onwards is getting the Wild Dogs Doctrine and the DS Doctrine specifically. Wild Dogs will be the QRF response thing for any sorts of immediate threats in the vicinity, and DS will be the escalation to Wild Dogs. So this means that if you have a threat to an industrial operation, for example, let's say a moon pop, like we had the Black Ops engagement before, your go-to fleet is going to be Wild Dogs. If you have an escalation to, say, a roaming gang, say a Black Ops engagement on top of that, then your upscale is going to be DS, and that's going to be available for you on contract moving forward. But that will take a little bit of time to do, as our industry setup is new, and we need you guys out there mining on all the moons, not just the ones that you feel are bringing you in money, because we have to work at this as a collective. If all you're looking for is to have your bottom dollar lined, then that's going to change very quickly, because you're not here to just make money, you're here to work as a collective. That's why we're doing this entire thing. Any questions before I move on to the fourth point? Mounts. So when are you coming mining with me? Somebody fire mounts for me, please. Okay, is there any other actual questions besides Mounts' mining fucking thing? Also, fuck all you guys that are pretty emoting that shit up. Fuck the lot of you. You said PvP guys. Yeah, you know what, Mounts? Go fuck yourself. I will come mine with you. Fine. There. You all heard it. You all friggin' heard it. I said I will mine with Mounts. Fucking gonna have chat light the fuck up for this shit, man. I'll pick up a mining fucking laser. Alright, Renee's typing something. So I'll wait for hers and then I'll move on to the next point. I'm coming mining with you, Mounts. Alright, just wait for Renee's question, then we'll move onwards. Yes, Alex, I will pick up the mining roke. I'm not bloody mining in that thing, though. I will grab a barge. Yeah, it's been some time. Yeah, it's been a long time. Alright, I'm going to assume Rennie doesn't have a question. So I'll move on to my next point here, which is the... Oh, she had one? Okay. What's the process for requesting escort for low/null mining ops, or for planning them in general? Huh. We haven't really done null mining operations at the moment. But that would be a good thing to test out. So the process for requesting escort is literally just asking somebody. Just asking Coalition Chat if you need an escort from A to B. That's literally it. If you're talking about like a move operation, because that's kind of what it sounds like, then that's a different thing. Then all you got to do is just at one of the FCs or the JFCs, and we can get something organized for you. That's literally it. So if you have, say, I don't know, let's say Alex has a dread in null that he needs moved, right? A ratting dread, like he has his ratting rook, and he wants that moved from nullsec to where we are. First, he's going to get shot. Secondly, he's going to have it moved. So something like that. You just need to ask one of the fleet commanders, just at the JFC tag in Coalition in the Discords, and we will get something organized for you. That's not a problem. Okay. So, moving on to my fifth point here, which is the industrial operations. This was to go back where I briefly said we'd need moon pops being brought in. All of the moon pops that are here are for everybody. They're all under coalition usage at the moment. It all needs to come in. If you see a moon pop and it's a glittering whatever, and it's a money moon and all that sort of stuff, and you get on it, fantastic. Bring it in, sell it to the coalition, we will buy it. If it's not a money moon and it's still popping, please be on it. That stuff needs to go. It is not being wasted for no reason. So don't just go for the money operations. Like, you want to be greedy, grab everything. Don't just grab one thing that you like. Like, you like the chocolate, but you don't like the dark chocolate, grab all of it. It's all chocolate at the end of the day. Go get it. That's basically what I'm getting at. I need to see. And this also ties into one of the next points. I need to see more engagement, specifically from a number of corporations, from JOSD, from High C, and from PRGCO. You guys need to start having more engagement in the in-game channels, general engagement on voice comms and communication. Like, a lot of you guys do industry operations, which is fantastic. I love that. But you need to also have your general communications with voice channels and protocol. Standing fleet is a thing. That needs to be a consistent endeavor for you guys. We can't help you if you don't follow basic protocol. Basic protocol is there to keep you guys safe. That's the whole point of it. The reason standing fleet exists is so that we can warp to you if you are getting fucked up by something. The same way that it works for everybody. Voice communication helps to translate and push things forward very quickly. That the way that I'm talking to you now, you understand what I'm saying. And this is the exact same thing with text. This transcribes a lot faster than me having to type out a paragraph saying, I am getting fucked up by X, Y, and Z. I need help. Right? A lot faster communication. I can just say, I am an Asgard tackled by a Drake. Right? That's it. Simple, easy, people grabbing ships, they get on, they go punch things in the face. This is the whole point of protocol. Because we've thought this stuff out, it's there, please use it. Any questions about that before I move on to my sixth point? Okay, no points. Right, so this goes to in-game channels and their usage. So I see a lot of guys in both TCF and Syndicate who aren't utilizing the Coalition channel. It's there for you guys to use. You need to be in it so that you can have communication across the board. Your corporation channels are fantastic, great, use them. Your coalition chat and your alliance chats are there for you to use as well. I don't know if Syndicate has its own specific Syndicate channel, but if it doesn't, then that's what it is. That's how Relance runs his operation in Syndicate. That's entirely down to him. For the coalition specifically, you need to be in the channels so that we can, one, have an assertion as to how many bodies we have at all times when it comes to any potential operations we may have. Example one, and the primary one being if we have a low sec moon pop and you have, I don't know, we have 50, 30, 40 people online, right? And we don't have that many on comms, and we only have 5 people from High C or a couple of people from PRGCO or from DA or from any other corporation, right? To name a few, a couple of people on comms here and there, but I'm not seeing as many people as are in the actual coalition chat in game on the voice communication channels. What this tells me from a top-down point of view is that people are either in other different channels, which is fine, that's not a problem. But if you're on an operation, you need to be in the voice channels. There has to be communication with this sort of stuff, the same way there has to be for standing generalization and that sort of stuff. It needs to be a thing. You got to have the protocol to be able to go about this sort of stuff so that there's consistent communication between organizations and there's structure for this. Any questions before I move on to my final point? Come on, guys. I know you have some questions. There's got to be people with questions. Okay, I see Mike who's typing, or Legatus rather, I should say. I'll wait for you to finish typing and then move on to my final point. Is there going to be a more formal setup for miners to request help? When people aren't in comms, it gets difficult to find QRF for mining operations. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more, Mike? Because I'm not quite certain what you mean. Yes, Randy, that is correct. If you're in fleet, you're in comms, no exception gets. Sorry, that's why standing fleet exists, because people need to have communication with one another. I get there are days where people just don't want to talk to anyone, which is fine. I have those days as well. There is a channel for that. Um, just isolate yourself if you want to. The only reason we have the comms there is for, as I said, communication, helping one another, and of course mingling and shit talking. Mike, I know you mentioned asking people, but for short-term fleet ops, how can miners get escorts? Is there a channel to ask help from PvPers? No, there is not, and there isn't going to be. When you talk about short-term operations, what do you mean? Because I don't understand what I get what you're saying, but there's no. Oh, right. No, then you don't need anything for that. Okay. So if it's like if your corporation goes into mining, like let's say High C goes to a belt or something like that, right? If you're in high sec, you don't need a ping, you don't need an escort, you don't need anything. Then just carry on doing what you're doing. But be in comms about it. Like be in comms, being standing fleet, that's the minimum. Therefore, like if we're at war, for example's sake, and I don't know, Syndicate gets decked some magical way, or there's some mechanic we don't know about, and they end up getting war decked and you're out in a belt mining and you get engaged, then just be in comms because you can have communication going faster. And if there are no PvP guys online, then that's why you have the QRF doctrine on standby, so you can fight as well. You need to be able to fight as an industrialist. You need to be able to fight. You can't just rely on the PvP guys because if you rely purely on the PvP guys, then you're going to be relying on them for the rest of your EVE career, and you don't want to do that. Several people are typing. Yes, Pegasus. That is a very true statement. PvP and minor segregation specification is literally just terms defined by the game to segregate certain activities. That's literally all it is. Randy, if you got questions that you don't know how to phrase, just go ahead and say how you feel is the best way, and we'll figure it out from there. Dragon, do you recommend us putting stations up in high sec or low sec? I see the pros and cons for both. That would be dependent on your Alliance CEO, which is now Relance, and Relance's answer to you would be do not put them up under Syndicate. If you want to put them down, then I'm not going to answer for him because I don't know Relance's thoughts and opinions, but I would say get in touch with him. Go ahead. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Jules, if you're mining low sec, find an empty system, keep an eye on local and descan. There's a lot of empty systems in the pocket area, and as long as you are keeping alert, you should be able to escape, align to a station, and warp if someone's feeling froggy. That is correct. Yes, Fuzzy, we are safe from SRS and low sec. They're too cowardly to come to low sec, and the only time they come to high sec is to gank a miner, and then they beat their chest that they've done something which they didn't. And then they fuck off because they don't have the balls to try and fight us in low sec. Dragon, we have. Yes. The other entities actually. Yeah, the other entities actually put up a bit of a fight there. That's the difference. Because SRS is too afraid to do anything to us in low sec for fear of an actual fight. Because how dare we get a fight? But other entities are a different thing. We can fight other entities and we can fight SRS just fine. Dragon, if you go to Holding Corporation again, butt heads, bounce the relance. Fucking English. Bounce the idea off of Relance, and if he says that's cool, then that's cool. It should be fine anyway, but just bounce it with him regardless. Just purely for courtesy's sake. Yeah, and that's yeah, it's not a problem. Yeah, exactly. Like you're all good to put your stuff down. Just give your alliance CEO a heads up, and they'll help you through the process because they'll sort the paperwork out for you, and they'll show you how to go about it in a way that the transition is smooth, basically, instead of just dropping it and then be like, hey, what the fuck? So you avoid that. Okay. Okay, Randy. Okay, I feel this is slowly changing in from a self-sufficient organization that focuses on the betterment of the body through codependent branches into dogs of war bonking stick that's going to slowly but surely phase out the desire for participation from people who don't want a second full-time job. And that's probably a little harsh, but it's how it looks from a break. The reason it looks like that is because we're segregating things and appropriating the structure as it needs to be. So we're separating the focus points from the industry that was predominantly in TJTF and we're putting it into Syndicate. That's literally it. There's no bonking stick for things like it's just reiteration of protocol. It only seems like a bonking stick because I'm tired of having to consistently say the same thing again and again and again. Like it just needs to start changing. And there's no other way for me to say it besides saying, look, if things don't start changing, then the bonking stick is going to be used. I can only be so friendly with everybody for so long. I have a patience too, as I'm sure everyone does. Right, if there's no other questions, I'll move on to the final point so we can wrap things up here. I've got one more person typing. I'll let you finish and then we'll carry on. And they've stopped. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and assume that there's no question. So the final point here is PvP operations and whether people want to come to them or they don't want to come to them. Look, guys, this goes off of all of the points that are previously mentioned. You need to know how to fight. You're in a game that, as I said, the moment you undock, you consent to fighting. That is the way the game is. If you think otherwise, you're not understanding the way that the game works. And that is exactly what it is. It's a game. I want to try and keep it friendly for everyone. I want to try and keep it organized for people. But there's a reason why we have protocol. And there is a reason why we have operations and consistent stuff, moon pops, wormhole operations, PvP fleets and that sort of stuff, fun operations and so on and so forth, and firesides, to be able to appropriate this stuff to you on a monthly basis, right? So you have an understanding of what's going on within the collective that you are in. You need to be able to fight. There is going to be a point, and this is going to come in the future, where we get engaged by an entity that is going to fight us for X reason or Y reason or A reason or B or C or D, and it's going to be anything, and it's going to happen. It's an eventuality. It will happen. That's not to say that I have intel on an organization that's come from us. That's not to say that there's a fight lined up or anything like that. It's purely based on the way that the game works. People will fight each other. That is how it is. So you need to be ready for a fight, which is what your training is for doctrines, which is why there are PvP pings for roams. Like when Pegasus puts out a ping, I need you guys to go on it if you're free. It's fine if PvP is not your specific thing. That's okay. Miss a fleet, miss 2 fleets, but go on operations. Be at least consistent about it. So if you have an operation on one day and you don't want to go the next day, fair enough. But then at least have like 1 or 2 or something a week, something like that, right? That's fine, so that you build up a consistent basis of how to do things. Because when you have the consistency down, it'll be like riding a bicycle. You'll know what orbitals are about. You know what damage variations are about. You'll know your ranges. You'll know how to do things. And it's fantastic, because when you know how to do this, you don't need an FC there. You don't need somebody who's a whiz at PvP or something like that to tell you how to do stuff. If you know how to do it, you can just get out there and do it. And that's the whole point of the PvP operations, to teach you about this sort of stuff. And if we're not pinging a PvP fleet on one day, let's say it's a Wednesday, which is normally our quietest day, and we don't have an operation out, as Dorma's put it there, everyone needs to go and experience a Utrecht fleet at least once. Because Utrecht used to be a part of the organization, is an ally to us. Astral always will be. Go on one of their fleets. They're fantastic, brilliant people. You're more than welcome to join one of our allies' fleets. They ping all the time. Exactly as Randy says, participate. Like, it's not difficult. It's everything is here for you. You have the capacity to do operations in moonpoles. You have the capacity to go out and do PvP. If you don't know how to do something, the only way you are going to be able to achieve it is if you go and try. It doesn't matter if you fuck up. No one's going to laugh at you. This is coming from me, like, and just like go on the operations. No one is going to say anything bad about you fucking up or messing something up or not knowing anything or asking 20,000 questions. The whole point of it, the process, is learning. If you don't learn about it, you're not going to be able to do what we need you to do, which is be able to fight. Because ultimately, that's what it will boil down to. Right. That's fair enough, Randy. On that note, I will be going ahead and wrapping up the Fireside. If there's no more questions, if there are, well, too bad. I'm going to go ahead and close this thing up. There is also a Utrecht fleet to go to, which ironically starts relatively soon. Feel free to go to that, guys. If you want to keep up with the indie operation, feel free to, but I would recommend you go to the Utrecht fleet. Just go over there. Go in a pod, get over there, get in a ship like a frigate, and just go and have some fucking fun. Experience it. Like, live a little. The whole point of life is to experience different things and have a bit of danger. Go fuck shit up.